Hey, what's up? This is German with Audio Spring Music, and today we're checking out Tomorrow Never Knows by the Beatles, a song with no chorus and only one chord.
Turn off your mind, relax and float downstream.
Hey guys, welcome back, and today I'm super stoked to tell you that I just bought a brand new camera. As you can probably tell, the quality difference in video is way different from all the other videos. No more recording on iPhones anymore, and I'm actually gonna show you this. This is the camera that we're recording with now. It's Sony a6600. Super stoked, I love the image. And every video from now on will be recorded with this. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to the channel because we try to bring you all kinds of songwriting analysis, songwriting insights to help you become a better, more creative songwriter. So don't forget to like the video if you like it, subscribe to the channel, and let's get right into the video. Okay, so the song we're covering today is Tomorrow Never Knows by the Beatles. Let's talk a little bit about the sound of the Beatles first. They were a band that spanned a lot of time, so their sound changed quite a lot. You know, you have songs like A Hard Day's Night, All My Loving, which are more pop oriented. But by the time that this song came out, Tomorrow Never Knows, they switched to a lot more psychedelic sounding songs. And just a year before, George Harrison had actually met Ravi Shankar thanks to David Crosby from The Byrds. Ravi Shankar is a very big music legend in Indian classical music. This gave George Harrison a huge influence and a very big interest in the sitar and opened the Beatles up to the sounds and the culture and the philosophies of India. And a lot of that came up in this song, even though the song was written by John Lennon. But the philosophy and the influences of Indian music and psychedelic music are very present in this song. So Tomorrow Never Knows puts together the sounds and cultures and philosophies of India mixed with the psychedelic movement in the Western world, and it meshes these two things into one song. You can tell this from elements of the song such as one-chord droning, the use of Indian classical music instruments such as the sitar, mixed in with John Lennon's pop vocals. Lastly, another thing that's important about this song is that it was never meant to be played live. This was just meant to be a song that was made in the studio and would never be reproduced in a live performance. Back in those days, you couldn't because the technology wasn't there. A lot of the sounds in this song are samples that were altered in the studio, and even the console was used as a performance to play these samples in the recording process. The engineer would record and then would play with the faders as things needed to come in and out of the track. So the console itself was an instrument playing back these samples, and you can't reproduce that live. Nowadays you can do it because we have more advanced technology. That makes this song a precursor for how a lot of modern pop musicians write music today, where they'll take a sample and they'll alter it digitally in the studio, and they can actually play it live because we have more advanced technology. Alright, now that we have some context about the song and the band at the time, let's get into analyzing the structure of the song. Okay, so checking out the song structure, we have an intro, a verse, a bridge, and a verse. And really the whole song is just one big idea, but I try to separate them into these sections because it just seems like what makes sense to me. So one of the big things I want you to notice is that there's no chorus in this song, which is super weird for a pop song at the time. And even today, you don't see very many pop songs with this kind of song structure. So what they did instead of having a chorus in the song is that John Lennon just sings some repetitive lines over the verses.
It is not dying. It is not dying. It is shining. It is shining. It is being. It is being.
Because the line is repetitive and he uses a lot of the same words, it kind of functions as a chorus, even though there's no section of the song that's boom, like the set chorus by itself. But it gives the listener something catchy to hold on to throughout the song. And what they do to switch things up besides with the singing is by adding all these textures and sound samples and some audio effects that are very visual. And it's something that makes this song so interesting, is that because of all these sound textures and sound samples, they almost paint an image in your mind with these sounds. So it engages more of your senses than just your hearing. And a lot of people have said that this song is a good audio representation of what an LSD trip is like. The tempo of Tomorrow Never Knows is 129 BPMs and the metric is 4x4. Also, the rhythm for this song is incredibly simple. It's literally just the same thing the entire song, which is pretty amazing because it never really gets boring. And aside from all the textures and the sound effects that they add to the song, I think the reason is because it's so short. The song's only about 3 minutes long. As you can see, the kick is on the 1 and the snare is on the 2, and this gives a very forward feeling. And there's also a crash that's always being played, and it creates a sort of bright wash that just kind of adds to the overall textures of the song. Also, if you listen, at the end of the beat, there's a slight pause before returning to the 1, which gives a feeling of a stop motion and just makes the beat more interesting in my opinion. So the beat and the bass lines for the entire song stay exactly the same throughout the entire song. If you listen, the drums are also accompanied by a traditional percussive Indian instrument called a tambura. And I think that just supports the song being inspired by Indian music. Checking out the chord progression of the song, this is just as simple as everything else. It's actually just one chord. The chord is C major, but on top of that, there's also a synthesizer that's layering some notes, forming a B flat major over C major. But even then, there's always that droning C major chord underneath. And this is one of those elements from Indian music where they're using one chord droning and layering things on top of it. So because we have that B flat major, it tells us that this song is in C mixolydian. Because B flat is the flat 7th of the C major scale, forming a mixolydian mode. And there's no other sharps or flats. Okay, so the vocal melody is also in C mixolydian. And this mode of the major scale is used a lot in rock, and it has a very psychedelic sound to it. So that makes it perfect for what they were trying to go for with Tomorrow Never Knows. If you notice, the song's lyrics, they're concept driven, they're repetitive, and they're based on John Lennon's experiences with LSD and book references from The Psychedelic Experience by Timothy Leary, Richard Alpert, and Ralph Metzner. John Lennon even took a line from the introduction of the book and made it the first line in the song, and the line is, "Turn off your mind, relax, and float downstream." So for some quick background on the book, The Psychedelic Experience was a book dedicated to Aldous Huxley, who was an amazing author and an early proponent of psychedelics. The Psychedelic Experience is meant to be a guide through the process of ego death, which people often experience when using psychedelics. And if you don't know what ego death is, it's basically a loss of subjective perception. You perceive things without a boundary of you as a separate individual. This is why if you ever talked with somebody who's done psychedelics, they'll describe the experience as helping them connect with things around them, like nature or even inanimate objects and the people that they trip with. It's not so much that they'll feel a connection between themselves and other things, it's that the boundary of themselves as a separate thing goes away, if that makes any sense. So this should give you a hint of why this song is written as a loop. The songwriting is meant to support this concept that it talks about. The song is made from one chord, one rhythm, one bass line, it's just one big song section, and all of this supports the concept of perception without a separate individual experience, or, in songwriting terms, listening to a song with no separate pieces. Okay, so here's a chart of the dynamics of the song, and as you can see, the dynamics don't really change very much. Given its droning harmony, its repetitive rhythm, and that technically there's no chorus, the dynamics of the song pretty much stay the same the whole way through. There's really no clear peaks and valleys, and a song like this would normally risk sounding boring and repetitive, but I think the Beatles made it interesting because they used a really catchy rhythm, they have some really psychedelic textures, they have John Lennon's voice, and the lyrics that he repeats over and over give the listener something to hold on to while still leading the listener through the entire song. Finally, let's take a look at what you can learn from this song for your own songwriting. So, number 1 is using one chord droning. I think this gives an almost meditative feel, but it does risk sounding repetitive, so be careful with it. It can be really useful, especially if you start layering things on top of it. And as far as coming up with song ideas, having one chord droning and then building things on top of it can be a really fun way for you to come up with song ideas. Number 2 is using warped audio samples of everyday things. Just as in this song, they used sounds of laughter, of seagulls, and basically just a bunch of everyday things. I think this is a great way for you to put something tangible from your own personal life into a song. If you want to have a sample of somebody you know saying something. So using warped audio samples is great. Number 3 is making a song snapshot. Just as you see with this song, a song doesn't always have to be this huge long journey. You could just make a song out of one idea or concept and just keep it simple and layer things on top of it, just as John Lennon did in this song. Tip number 4 is to keep it short, especially if you're doing things like one chord droning or you're having a lot of repetitive things happen in your song. Make sure that they're very catchy, and also make sure to keep the song short and sweet. And tip number 5 is to use repetitive vocal phrases as the hooks of your songs instead of using a chorus. So just as you saw in this song, they don't have a chorus, but they do have very repetitive phrases which sort of function as a chorus so that the listener has something to hold on to. This song is incredibly simple, but it's still interesting to check out for songwriting because making something that's so simple and so against what people are used to hearing and still making it sound cool is really creative. And that's the real lesson here, is that this song is incredibly creative. Tomorrow Never Knows challenges how a lot of people think about songwriting, and especially in pop music where everything is very much kind of a cookie cutter formula, this song throws a lot of things out the window. So my invitation and my challenge to you would be to write a song that goes against every rule you have for yourself in songwriting and try to make it sound cool anyway. And you can use Tomorrow Never Knows as a template to see how somebody like John Lennon would have gotten over certain songwriting hurdles and production issues. So with that said, good luck, and we'll catch you in the next one.